one of these words that people like me have a tough time spelling. I have two special guests, and the first guest I want to introduce is Cheryl Kuchek. I think I pronounced that correctly. How are you, Cheryl?
I'm good, David. How are you?
Good deal. And would you introduce our second guest, Cheryl?
Absolutely. I am honored to. Her name is Lycia Evanoff, and she is truly an expert in silhouette and instructing people. And I'm so excited to have her be a part of our session here. So welcome, Lisha.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Glad to be with you. And you're a Texas girl. You said you're in East Texas. Where in Texas?
Far East Texas, almost to Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay.
South of Longview. If you
So
know where Longview is.
not terribly far from us. So we love Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas folks, of course. And so what we want to do today is talk about and answer your questions pretty much about silhouette and should it be part of your sublimation success. And again, I've learned my part of this. I've learned silhouette sort of on my own. So it's really great to have somebody with us that already knows all the answers and can help us. You can send your questions. Rodeo Bow will monitor YouTube and Facebook, right? Right? Okay. And we will relay those questions in. And with that, Cheryl, I'd like to turn it over to you and get us going.
Awesome. Well, first off, I'm going to ask Lisha to give us a little bit of background about who you are and how long you've been doing silhouette and teaching and educating, because I think people would love to know a little more about you.
Well, I bought my first silhouette in 2013. I was teaching a Bible class and cutting out all little manners of things for preschoolers. And I heard about this machine on a digital scrapbooking podcast. I was actually a digital scrapbooker. And I thought, well, maybe it would help me. And the more I got to using it, I realized all the capabilities it had. I'm still finding new capabilities for it today. And I was a Photoshop Elements user, and slowly over time, I started using Silhouette more and more for graphic design. And then in 2016, I decided to start teaching because there really, at that time, weren't a lot of resources out there for people wanting to learn. I had found an online class with PowerPoint presentation, and that's how I learned the basics. But there's really a lot to the program that people don't know about. So I was excited to share it with other people.
That's awesome. So how does your teaching work? Do you do it virtually? Do you do it in person? How does that work?
Both. Of course, a lot more in person before the last couple of years. And of course, when we all started staying at home, had to find other avenues. So I teach via Zoom. Some people, almost everybody does Zoom now after COVID. But before that, I would do FaceTime or whatever helped them. And I've also done in person. I've hosted my own classes, hosted my own events. Just whatever anybody needs. I try to kind of meet them where they're at and do whatever I can do to help them.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So why would someone want to use a Silhouette program versus another program?
I think there's a few different reasons. One, you may already be familiar with the software because you've been using the digital cutter. That's one reason. One might be the price point. You can download the basic version of Silhouette at no cost, and you can play around in it. And then the continuing price point for it is good too, because it's a one-time purchase. You don't ever have to pay for the updates as they come along. You pay for an upgrade at one time, but you don't ever pay for updates. And then another reason might just be, the budgetary constraints that you have. And there's really, if you're going to do, say, a lot of photo editing, you're going to need a program like Affinity or Corel or, maybe not Corel, but Affinity and Photoshop.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of bells and whistles that you don't really need. And so Silhouette gives you kind of a basic software with some extras that you can use to help you with your sublimation. And then also, if you're running a business, it can help you with your packaging and your marketing, and you can make mock-ups in it. You can just really do a lot to it. A lot with it.
For you. So you don't actually have to buy a Cameo to use Silhouette. You can just download the trial, download the free version, and then get a license for the business edition, say, and you're set, right?
That's exactly right.
And is the business edition what you would recommend for many people that are, for instance, our templates really are PNG files. So I think the business edition is the one that will handle a PNG. I assume the business edition also handles PDFs.
Yes, you can import PDFs and PNGs in a lower level, but to save as a PNG or a JPEG, you need business edition. Now you can, there's some ways around it. You can go through some file converters, but the easiest way is just to get business edition. So at a minimum, I would recommend Designer Edition. That's the first level of paid upgrade. But if you want all the bells and whistles and to be able to save as a PNG and a PDF, and a JPEG, definitely Business Edition.
And I understand that Silhouette is cross-platform, Mac and PC?
Yes, it is. You cannot use it on a Chromebook, but it is Mac and PC.
And what do they cost? What's the Designer Edition and the Business Edition? Do you know?
Well, they have the retail price of Designer is $50, Designer Plus is $75, and Business is $100. But you can every day find that cheaper online. And when I checked the other day, Business Edition was $59 online.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's really awesome.
And it's a one-time purchase.
When people ask me, because they ask all the time, what program should I use? And my answer is always the same. Use the program you know.
Exactly.
And so many know Silhouette. So it's just so great to know that you can incorporate sublimation, which is my next question to you, is how easy is it to incorporate sublimation with Silhouette?
Well, I think it's very easy. You can import your graphics. You can modify your graphics. It's got some image effects tools. You can shift colors with it. About the only drawback is it does not use ICC color profiles. So you do have to kind of do some workarounds for that. But most of the time when you're printing, you're going to have really good results from it.
David, do you want to chime in on that about the profiling?
For years, there's been a very large number of people who use Silhouette for sublimation, and typically we just do the color management in the driver instead of in the application like we could do for Corel or Illustrator or things like that. And that's certainly adequate. And one of these days they may look at adding that color engine into Silhouette, but probably not. So we're in good shape. And my understanding of Silhouette is I compare it more to Corel because it's a layout program. It's vector and can handle raster images. And then if you're into raster, you'll have your front end program if needed. Like Photoshop Elements would be my, what I use. But, other programs are just fine. And then for sublimation, I assume you probably agree with me that we would want to keep everything as RGB.
Right. And, really, basically what you're looking at is graphic design that then you're going to print on a sublimation printer to press. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, like this was all done. I don't know how clearly y'all can see that, but it was all done in Silhouette Studio. Completely.
That's
wow.
Awesome.
So, obviously, the Silhouette community is extremely large. And so are there add-ons for Silhouette that give it new features? Is there, I guess there's lots of artwork that you can tap into. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about the Silhouette universe.
Well, really, as far as like add-ons, you can connect it with Adobe Illustrator, but that's going to be more for if you're cutting. You can design your files in Adobe Illustrator and then cut on the Silhouette. As far as the program, once you upgrade to whichever level you choose, you've got all the bells and whistles in the program. The cutters, each one that comes out, they kind of add some new features to that. But as far as the designing capabilities, it's going to be in whatever level of software you purchase. You can import graphics from anywhere as long as they're in the right format, and that's going to depend on your level. So, for instance, if you just have the free basic edition, you're not going to be able to import an SVG. So you need designer edition. But again, that's more for cutting. But there's really not specific add-ons other than the software upgrades to give it more designing capabilities.
Gotcha.
So do we have any questions before we move on? Because
Bo, having any questions so far?
We have a question. How many people can you use on the business edition?
So I guess this question is about licensing. Can you install it on more than one PC?
Yes, 3. You can install on up to 3 computers at one time.
Okay, gotcha.
So one of the things that I asked Alicia if she would do, and to my amazement, she knocked it out of the park. And that is, I said, people, I deal with people all the time in my Sublimation for Beginners and Beyond group on design, on, just having issues with templates. So I asked her if she would create a PDF that would kind of show what she can do in Silhouette. Well, again, I'm going to share my screen, but she knocked it out of the park here. It's just so impressive. Let me share this. All right, can you all see that? See the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So let me make it maybe just a little bit smaller there. Okay, so we have a table of contents. She's going to be giving this for free to anybody who would like this. How to create the mug template with lots of photos. David, wouldn't you agree this is pretty awesome?
It is. I'm watching and also trying to decipher the question, so I apologize, but I'll keep going.
Yeah, so I just want to she really gets into how to actually create it. I would have skipped all of that. I would have just said, 3.5 by 9, and that would have been me, but she rocks it big time. It's pretty impressive. So she goes through all of this stuff, shows you how in Silhouette, pictures as well as written instructions.
So start over again. So what are we looking at here?
We are looking at the PDF that she created to be able to give away to viewers who would like this. I sent the link to Lindsay.
Right. And what does the PDF do? I mean, what does it
shows
describe?
people how to create a mug template in Silhouette Studio from
And a mock-up.
soup to nuts.
Yeah, it looks
And a
like,
mock-up.
I was saying it's a little bit more than a mug template. It looks like, creating a mock-up.
Yeah, But I asked her, I mean, she just did the whole soup to nuts. This is the kind of instructor you get. I mean, she's over the top, really, really good. And shows you exactly how to center it. So it's pretty impressive. I hope I didn't make people dizzy by going too fast.
Well, and so the way you can get this is we're gonna post it in our show notes and on Facebook and YouTube, so you'll be able to download it using that link. So we'll get started with that. So obviously you focused a little bit on mock-ups. Mock-ups is obviously a hot topic nowadays. And so in words, what's your approach for creating a mock-up?
Well, the first thing I do, because I'm not a stellar photographer, you can take a photo. I have a photo booth that I got from Amazon, and you can set up your own arrangement there if you like that. But the best thing to do really is go find a mock-up. You can find them at very low cost, sometimes even for free. And then you just import that mock-up photo that's got a blank substrate on it. And then you can add a PNG version of your sublimation design or the file that you're going to use for your sublimation design. Before you've created it in your software, you can just check it out and see how you think it's going to look. And then you can add text, you can add a watermark, you can just do whatever you want. And then if you've got business edition, you save it as a JPEG or a PNG, and it's ready for you to use.
Okay, so you're gonna buy a mock-up, say of a mug on a table. You're gonna bring it into Silhouette. Then you're going to import your PNG, I assume transparent background and all that,
Right.
and place it on top. And is it still going to be flat, or do you have the ability to warp it a little bit?
You do have the ability to warp it. It kind of depends on your substrate, whether you need to do that. I haven't had to do much warping on the photos. You might want to warp something if you're going to do it, say, in vinyl, but you can warp. You have an option to do a custom warp where you adjust the warp points on it. And you could also, if you knew the dimensions of, say, a particular mug, you could do conical warp. You have to have Designer Edition Plus to use conical warp.
So is the Designer Edition Plus, is that below the Business Edition or above?
Yes, it starts with Designer Edition. Then it goes Designer Edition Plus. And Designer Edition Plus was created more for people that wanted to import embroidery designs. And it also has some Flexa shapes in it, which are just shapes that you can use to very quickly draw. I think it's got, I don't even remember how many, 40 or 50. And it also has the ability to import custom rhinestone images. So it's kind of a hybrid in between designer edition and business.
Okay, gotcha. I know a lot of the folks that probably are with us today have Sawgrass printers and are using Creative Studio. I assume that you could do some artwork preparation, design, and then maybe push it into Creative Studio for printing there.
As long as you have it in the right format.
Yeah, and I think they accept a PNG, I'm pretty sure, and I know they accept a PSD. Will Silhouette save out as a PSD?
No, it saves as a PDF. So PSD, that's the Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if Creative Studio will take a PDF, but I'm not sure.
And it's kind of a misnomer that business edition is called that. You know, you don't need a business to benefit from business edition. It's just what it's called. So there's a lot of, you know, home users that aren't selling anything that use business edition.
Yeah. While ago, go ahead, Cheryl.
Yeah, so somebody messaged me a question, and that is, Lisha, do you teach classes on Silhouette? I mean, they're asking me if you teach classes on Silhouette
Yes,
for
I do.
Sublimation.
Yes, I've done that one-on-one, and I've also done it in a group setting. But in a group setting, I basically showed them how to create the file, and then I already had the transfers printed. It was people that did not have Sublimation printers themselves. So I was trying to introduce them to it.
While we were talking, a couple of questions came in, so we'll skip around a little bit. One of the questions that I've heard, you know, probably all too often is Silhouette crashing. And I suppose sometimes it crashes because Windows or Mac updates or just things happen. Is there any general guidance if you start having some frequent crashes from Silhouette?
Well, you know, the first thing is just to make sure, of course, that your computer is up to specs. And people have a lot of luck with gaming computers because they are meant for a lot of graphic, you know, handling a lot of graphic designs. I have a MacBook Pro. I don't have a lot of crashing issues. There's also a few tweaks you can make in your preferences. You have to understand that if you're creating a design that has a lot of graphics in it, a lot of text, a lot of, you know, putting a lot of things together, you're asking that processor to handle a lot of information. So you've got to have a computer that's going to run that. And but I do hear a lot of reports of it crashing. I don't particularly have that problem a lot. The main issue I have is there is a bug in it that it will, if your computer goes to sleep on a Mac, a lot of times it will crash your program. That's about the only time I have any crashing. But I have had to learn that if I'm doing something really, really graphic heavy, that I have to let it do its work and just be patient with it.
Gotcha. So, question on EasySubli vinyl. Have you had any experience using it?
I have.
Can you share a little bit?
Well, I've used it both ways. I've used it where I created the design and then I printed directly onto the EasySubli. And I have done it to where I printed the design on my sublimation printer and then sublimated on to the EasySubli. So both ways work well. I like it. It's a good product, especially it's really hard, I think, especially for young children to find polyester, you know, garments. And so for my grandkids, I use EasySubli quite often for their little t-shirts and things that I do.
Cool. Yeah, we're certainly Rodeo Bo here used to be tech support at Caesar, so he's taught us a lot about it. Does Silhouette, so if you're thinking about Silhouette, say, versus Corel, and you don't know either one of them, seems like Silhouette lot less expensive, of course. And have you ever used Corel Draw?
Very limited, and it's been quite a while. I've used Affinity, I've used GIMP, I've used Photoshop, but I have very limited experience with Corel Draw.
Gotcha. So, one of the favorite features we love in Corel is something called Power Clip, where we're clipping into, say, a template or whatever. Does Silhouette have a feature like that?
Well, you can drag and drop images into any shape. So that's similar.
Yes, it is. And it would be placed behind the object?
It fills the object.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. That's cool.
So if you wanted to say for instance, you did your mug template and you wanted a full pattern on it and then maybe a monogram on top, you would drop the pattern in and then the pattern becomes part of the template shape. And then you would create your monogram or whatever that you wanted to go on top of it and then just place that on top of it.
That's the same. Yeah, that's like clipping mask in Photoshop is
Exactly.
And yeah,
Exactly.
It's pretty much the same. Yeah.
Cool. And I assume that the latest version of Silhouette works just fine on the M1 Max?
Well, in all honesty, unless I would have a machine that absolutely requires 4.4, I have stuck with the lower version, and that's the one I recommend, which is 4.3.370. But the higher level is working with the newer Macs, yes.
Okay. So
I feel like 4.3.370 is a little more stable, and it does everything I need for it to do.
Okay. Gotcha.
And it's very easy to download legacy versions off of the Silhouette site. They list their legacy versions so that if you ever have a problem, you can roll back to one of those earlier versions. And so that's one thing I recommend for people if they are having trouble is let's see what version of software you're on and maybe roll back to an earlier one to see if you have better success.
Gotcha. Looking at the classes here.
Looking at the classes.
I mean the questions, sorry. Somebody's asking about Canva. So I assume Canva is a little bit of an online program that...
Yeah, I use Canva. I use Canva a lot. It's a really good, I do pay to use the pro version, and that just allows you access to more graphics. What I have heard, I don't import a lot from Canva to Silhouette Studio, but I have done it before. What I hear from people sometimes when they're trying to import those images is that it may have some stray lines they didn't intend, or things won't look right. And I haven't really delved into that to see, because most of what I use Canva for are graphics that I'm just using online. And then I do everything else in Studio. But Canva's a good program. Canva's a really good program.
Canva. I use it all the time too. It's a great program. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You just have to be careful in Canva to make sure that you have the rights to the images you're using, because they have a kind of a difficult to understand use policy. I know, like, you can't create a logo with it or anything like that. So, I mean, you can create a little logo that you want, but not one that you're going to use, say, on the web or in your printed materials. And so, for instance, my logo I created that in Canva, but I had to contact the designer himself, and I paid to use the graphic in there.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah, you just have to be really careful, especially if you're selling items, that you have the correct use license for them.
The next question is, how can I get my designs I purchased from the design store after I have downloaded them if I want to use them on a different computer?
Well, the designs that you purchase, do they want to use them in a different program or just on a different computer? Because the ones you purchase from the design store go into your library, your cloud library. And so when you sign into it from any computer, you should be able to access those designs.
That makes sense. Okay. Just a lot
It's
of...
cloud-based.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
It's cloud-based.
Yeah, that's
So-
what I thought.
Yeah.
So it should be, if you're using the same login from each computer, you should be able to see all the stuff you have in the cloud.
Exactly. Now, my caution against that is saving your own designs to the cloud. You can do that. You can save them to the Silhouette library, but I would always, always, always have them backed up on an external hard drive, because the Silhouette cloud library is meant for mostly the designs you purchase from the Silhouette design store. It's not meant as cloud-based storage for all of your designs. And I've, heard from too many unhappy people that they had a crash and they couldn't get everything back that they had saved in their library. So I just save all of my user-created designs to my hard drive or to an external hard drive. And I use the cloud library for my Silhouette designs that I get from the design store.
Okay. Just to be brief but complete, so turn our attention just for a moment to the people that probably are understanding what we're saying and they figured out this has something to do with a Cameo. So how many different Cameos are they? Is there anything to understand there if somebody wanted to buy a cutter?
Well, through the years, there have been technically 6, because the Cameo 4 comes in 3 sizes. And that is the only one you can purchase now, is the Cameo 4, unless you can find used original Cameo, Cameo 2, or Cameo 3. So the Cameo 4 comes in the standard size with the 12-inch cutting width. Then it comes in the Plus, which is a 15-inch cutting width, and the Pro, which is a 20, because it was going to be 20, I think it's 24-inch cutting width. And then there's the Portrait model, which is a small, more like desktop version, and it has an 8-inch cutting width.
Okay, gotcha. And I remember somebody showing me how you could take the artistry markers and mount them in your Cameo.
Yes.
and draw right on your paper, which I thought...
That's what I did with this.
Oh, cool. Cool.
These are sketch designs from the Silhouette design store that I just arranged onto, my design page in Silhouette Studio, put a black fine point artistry marker in the holder of my Cameo, sketched it out, and then sublimated it.
Cool, cool. So it can draw, so to speak, and it can cut. Anything
Right.
else it can do that maybe I don't know?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
It can make people pull their hair out sometimes, and it can also make them very happy.
Okay. So, obviously learning to use a contour cutter, I guess, requires trial and error learning and all that kind of stuff that I don't think I want to do, but we got some people around here that already have it figured out, so I can just ask for help.
That's right.
Okay, so do you have any current recorded classes for people to go look at?
The only one that I have that's recorded is an online class for getting started with your silhouette, and it takes you from setting up your machine all the way through completing 2 projects using adhesive vinyl. And it's got almost 2 hours of recorded video, but it's broken down in small sections so that you can work on one section, get that down, watch it as many times as you want. And also with that, there are downloadable handouts that cover everything that's in the video. So depending on whether you're more of a visual learner or if you like to read and have something to reference, I've got both in there.
And how would people get access to that?
Well, I can give you the link for it. It's on Thinkific, but if you sign up to get the mug template handout, when you fill in your email address, you'll automatically be taken to a thank you page that will give you access to that course at a 40% discount. So it's $29.
Okay, so
The normal price is $49.
not much money. So probably
No,
a good,
it's really
good
not.
value.
And it has I have a private Facebook group that you can join if you're a member of that class. And then I'm there. I'm really, really responsive to questions if people need help while they're working on something or afterward. It's not just I don't just leave you hanging.
Moving on here, we're getting close to being out of time. But will we see you at any trade shows next year?
I hope so. We haven't traveled in quite a while, so I am looking forward to next year.
Gotcha.
But I think he's referring to a virtual that you may be teaching at. What do you think?
Yes.
So
Perhaps,
I
yes.
think Cheryl has a one-day event coming up. Cheryl, do you want to mention that?
Yes. So January 28th, of course, Conde will be there, which is super exciting. It's going to be different than anything that we've done previously. So I would love for you to be a part of it. Tickets will be going on sale after the first of the year. So be waiting for that. You can go to sublimationsummit.com and you will be able to purchase tickets for it. It's going to be inexpensive, but it is going to be a one day. And I'm not sure exactly how many classes. It'll either be 8 or close to 16 classes. We'll see how many we cram in there in a day. So
Okay.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and I can tell you that the price is right. All of Cheryl's events are extremely low cost, and the reason that we enjoy being part of it is that it's all focused around education.
Yep.
Education is the real key to success. Out of curiosity, what sublimation printer do you have?
I have a Sawgrass.
Okay, like
I have the 400.
Okay, gotcha. Love that printer, of course. And the Sawgrass printers, for folks that want to do the EasySubli as far as printing directly on it, that's really the way to go. There's nothing wrong, of course, with printing and pressing onto it, but it makes alignment a little bit more challenging. And
Yes,
so
it does.
it's
it does.
nice. It's nice to print, dry it, cut it. I guess those steps. Okay, Bo, any more questions here? Well, so what we're going to do is we'll put in our part of the show notes the link that she was referring to. Again, please let us know, and what we'll do is we'll circle back around in the future and do a second version of this to help people get familiar. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, Cheryl, one of the first questions we ask is, what software do you know? And if you don't know any software,
Yep.
what I tend to say is, hey, assuming you're getting a Sawgrass printer, is start off with Creative Studio, and you may stay there. But at some point, you may want to graduate to a vector program like Silhouette Studio. And I really appreciate your feedback and helping people get the confidence to take those first steps. That's what I find to be the biggest challenge for folks is, you know, they study themselves to death without ever actually doing anything. It's like, I guess, reading a mountain of cookbooks or watching videos on how to drive. I don't believe that dog hunts. So I want to thank y'all both for being part of us, and look forward to doing this again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.